Drax and I do have one thing in common. We both have sensitive nipples.
Ow, my nipples!
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, released in 2017, and is directed by James Gunn, who has directed the other films in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, and is also the co-head of DC Studios. And this film is starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Michael Rooker, Karen Gillan, Tom Clenentief, Sylvester Stallone, and Kurt Russell. It's been months since the events of the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and the Guardians are now guns for hire and known all throughout the universe. One of those people that has learned about the existence of Star-Lord and the Guardians of the Galaxy is Ego the Living Planet, who we find out in this movie is actually Peter Quill's lost biological father. So Ego invites the Guardians back to his planet so that he can become the father to Peter Quill that he never was. But something is amiss about Ego and this planet, and it's soon revealed that Ego is trying to take over the entire universe, which has kind of become the trope of Marvel villains in the later phases, especially like in phase 3, where we have a villain who wants to conquer the galaxy. Before it's about taking over the world, now it's about the universe, right? It's a trope that's kind of being a little overplayed when it comes to comic book films, so now the MCU is trying to backtrack a little bit and just kind of be a little bit more grounded and talk about kind of everyday problems and everyday villains, which may be the main issue that a lot of people have with Phase 4. Doesn't feel grandiose like Phase 3 was with the Infinity Stones. But that's okay, it's a rebuilding phase, but let's not talk about that. We're talking about Phase 3 here, Volume 2, Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's one of my favorite of the Guardians franchise so far. I believe I put the holiday special just slightly higher than this one. The holiday special is just such a freaking delight for me. It's just a quick 45-minute special. There's no villain. We're not trying to fight anyone. Just nice seeing the characters again, because it had been so long since the release of this movie in 2017. Now, the first Guardians of the Galaxy felt like it had a much bigger cast and had much bigger, I guess, world stakes. Really, when I say world stakes, I'm talking about Xandar, but it seemed like there were a lot more characters in that movie. Here, this one feels very contained, where we don't have a ton of characters on set the entire time. Really, we just have like a handful, and then we have Ego, this huge-ass frickin' planet, who I will say Ego is one of my favorite MCU villains. I believe I ranked him pretty high on my villains ranking that I did a couple months ago, because he is this everlasting entity who is just lonely, who's just in search of finding an equal, someone that he can be a companion with, someone that he can share really the entire universe with. And then he turns out being a giant jerk and wants to assimilate everything into Ego's image. I mean, that makes sense. His name is frickin' Ego, for God's sakes. And then we get the cool video game final boss battle in the end, which I know a lot of people criticize about this movie, but I actually really love it, because I like those final boss battles in video games. I think they're a lot of fun. That's what this movie is, and that's how James Gunn is as a director, especially when he's telling a story that he's written or he has great influence on. He just has a ton of fun with these characters. I know sometimes the F word is seen as like a bad thing, like everything doesn't need to be fun, maybe we could do some seriousness and some grittiness in our superhero films, but you know, sometimes you just want to have that fun. And that's what these Guardian films are. They're just a ton of fun. And on top of that fun, we still have stakes because people do die in this movie. It's not like everything comes out all sunshine and rainbows at the end. No, we have a very heartfelt death that happens in here, and I'm not going to spoil it for those of you that haven't seen this film. I mean, who hasn't really seen this film? Really, honestly, out there, who hasn't? But that ending is just beautiful. It's so heart-wrenching, and it does make this film better, in my opinion, than the first entry. And it also brings that conversation forward that, what is the definition of family? Many people say that family is, you know, blood relatives. But, I mean, really, anyone could have sex with anyone and then have an offspring from said sex, and then that makes you family. And I think that's bullshit. I've always believed that family is something that you choose, and regardless of what blood you share or what rooms you share, doesn't matter. I have friends who are not related to me by blood, who I would consider more family than my actual family, who is related to me by blood. So the idea that Ego was Quill's father, but he wasn't his daddy, I love that line, because those are two different things. And the idea of choosing your family is such an important decision. especially in my history, that, yeah, just seeing that here in this movie brings a tear to my eye and makes this movie stand out so much more than the original. Now we have the introduction of Mantis in this movie, who becomes part of the Guardians going forward, and I think she's great. And Nebula kind of switches sides here. We get a little bit of her backstory and her pain and suffering that she's gone through, and the rekindling of her relationship with her sister, because that's all she wanted. All of the fights and all of the battles that Thanos forced them to do to each other, and all the pain that she had to go through from losing all of those, all she wanted was that sister. And it's a beautiful moment. There are so many beautiful moments in this movie. There are, however, some kind of idiotic moments, especially when it comes to the beginning of the climax, when Ego is like, "I loved your mother, and that's why I had to put that tumor in her head." And that snaps Quill out of his trance and then starts taking out Ego because he gets all angry. We all know how angry Peter Quill gets over stupid little shit like that. And I'm just thinking, Ego, why did you say that? If you hadn't have said that, he probably would have stayed there for a while and you could have assimilated more of the universe for yourself. But no, you had to do the stereotypical villain thing and you lay out your entire plan for everyone to hear. Why are villains so dumb? Why do they do dumb things like this? Michael Rooker is great as Yondu. The whole little bit with Rocket and Taserface and really that whole situation I think is hilarious. Plus we have the introduction of one of the most adorable characters in the history of all films, and that's little baby Groot. Oh my god, could it get cuter than that? I mean, really, like Grogu. Maybe Grogu and baby Groot, like they need to do like a battle of cuteness. Like, who is cuter? Is it baby Groot or Grogu? Actually, let me know in the comments. Which do you think is freaking more adorable? And you know what? It doesn't really matter because they're both so cute and adorable, we can have them both. They even put a line here with Taserface where they're like, "Hey, should we kill this thing?" And he's like, "No, of course not. It's too adorable to kill. Send it to the tailor and put him in a little suit." And the suit's a little adorable. He's just so awesome. It leads to an amazing bit with him and Rocket's trying to explain to him the button that he needs to press in order to explode the bomb. And then you have the moment with Quill looking for duct tape. You're just watching Groot kind of play around and flick the switch and just waiting for a response. Little moments like that that are written by James Gunn I think are stellar. It's fun, it's easing of tension, it's a little break in the action sequences. Yeah, it's great directing. It really is. And of course, Dave Bautista and his sensitive nipples I think is just wonderful. I don't need to say much about him, because he is one of the best things in the MCU. He's just a delight whenever he's on screen. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is, in my opinion, the superior Guardians of the Galaxy film. Definitely excited to see where it goes in Volume 3. I know Volume 3 was supposed to be like the introduction or the beginnings of Phase 4, but then the whole controversy with James Gunn and a tweet that he did like a decade ago that he had already apologized for, and then Disney was like, "Oh, let's fire him, but let's use his script," and then Feige was like, "No, let's bring him back," and then they did. It just delayed everything. I'm just excited to see the Guardians again, because it's been so long, since 2017. That one comes out this weekend, but until then, I'm gonna give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 4 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I like it a lot.
So guys, if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, what did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across because of this video, then comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell so you know the next time I release my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time on the channel, but in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.